government. Now, the regional government is different from our comprehensive claims, correct?
Yes, this is not a regional comprehensive claim. The DECHO are negotiating a regional comprehensive claim. And there will be a DECHO government set up there that will be responsible for the lands in the region. That is not what we were doing here. The lands that we are going to, that will be negotiated under this new agreement will be solely owned by the KFN and under the KFN government, not a regional government, right? So if this new agreement gets negotiated and if it's approved, it won't be a regional government, it'll be the KFN First Nation government.
So the current stage we're at, how many stages are there for comprehensive claims?
The first stage is to negotiate a framework agreement. So this is the very first step. It's basically an agreement to negotiate. Then we go negotiate what's called an agreement in principle. On the agreement in principle, the community votes. The community will hold a referendum. They will have to either approve the agreement in principle, that will lay out everything as to how the new claim would work, the land, the government, the jurisdiction, the money, etc. They'll either approve that or not. If that's approved, then that agreement will be put into the form of a final agreement that will be signed by the parties, and then it will then be approved by Parliament. So there are about 3 or 4 more stages to go through to have any new agreement that's approved by the community come into effect as law.
So then under the law of Canada, we would be recognized.
Yeah, if this new agreement is approved, it would be approved and recognized as a modern treaty. It would have constitutional protection. It would be your laws and your government and your jurisdiction would be recognized by the Parliament of Canada, and you would step out from under the Indian Act. You wouldn't be under the Indian Act and under the minister. You would have your own act, your own government, and that would be protected as a treaty and Aboriginal right.
So with the federal government recognizing our rights, what about the GNWT?
They would too.
Recognize our...
They would recognize this agreement, this new treaty, and the jurisdiction of your government and your authority over the lands.
So then the authority over our lands, what kind of land title is that?
You would own the land in fee simple. That is, you would own the surface and the subsurface wholly. It would be owned by the First Nation. We do this through setting up a trust, but the ownership of the land would clearly be with the First Nation.
So if we have members, could those lands be sold by KFN members?
I mean, could the land be sold to non-parties?
That's correct.
They could acquire an interest in that land under KFN law, right? But the underlying title to that land is KFN. So they might be able to lease it, they might be able to rent it, but the underlying title to the land still remains with the First Nation.
So it will always be in the hands of the First Nation?
Yes. Yeah.
And with the KFN community lands, is that going to be possibly tax exempt? There's 2 classes of lands contemplated. Community lands, that's where the existing community is, and settlement lands, that's the larger area of lands that will be selected from within the traditional area. Both of these lands, the title will be held in fee simple by the KFN. That's my understanding. Now, the community lands will be governed by a community government, and we'll have to negotiate what the shape of that community government will look like, but it will most definitely be controlled by KFN members. Was that your question? My question was, are we able to
collect revenue
taxes,
as,
right, yes.
collect revenue
Yeah.
as landowners.
If the KFN government decides that they want to collect revenue by taxing people that live on that land, that will be up to the KFN government. And the citizens on the KFN lands will have to approve that. There's no obligation for you to tax, and most importantly, the GNWT in Canada can't impose a property tax on those lands. Only the KFN government could do so. If they choose to do so with the approval of their members, it'll happen. If they don't, it won't.
So all, let's say we find gas somewhere within our settlement. Is it correct? Settlement land?
On the settlement lands, if any mines and minerals there,
Are we allowed to collect some sort of revenue?
yeah, that is what we'll have to negotiate in the agreement, is what will be the revenue sharing arrangement for royalties and rents from any resource development on our lands.
Okay. And with the framework agreement, it's not binding.
No, the framework agreement is simply an agreement to negotiate. It says right in the framework agreement, it's not legally binding, right? You can't force another person to negotiate, right? This is just a kind of it's probably misnamed as a framework agreement. It's really the terms of reference for the negotiations of a comprehensive claim. And it sets out what we're going to negotiate, how we're going to negotiate, what the time frame is. Canada's going to provide us loan funding to cover the costs of negotiations. Because it's loan funding, we want to do it quickly and efficiently, not drag it out. So we want to have a quick and efficient process to reach an agreement that we can then take to the members and say, look, is this what you want? Here it is. Have it well explained, or not. Do you want to stick just with what we've got? So members, like I said when I began, the whole purpose of this is to give the members a choice about how they want the future for their children and their children's children.
And so with the KFN Chief and Council signing the framework agreement, we're not giving up our treaty rights.
Oh, no. By signing the framework, all you're doing is agreeing to negotiate. That's it. They're not giving up any rights. You're not giving up the reserve. Nothing like that. I mean, that's not the case. It's just an agreement to negotiate. After the negotiations are done, then the people will have a choice. Do they want the new agreement, or do they want the status quo? And that's a choice that they'll have lots of time and lots of information to make.
So for KFN, rather than sticking with status quo, the reserve, if we do stick with the reserve, that's okay too.
If people want to stick with the reserve and not do a comprehensive claim, that's their choice. That can be a perfectly legitimate choice. Right now, that's the only choice. And the question is whether we should do the framework negotiations to give the community another choice. So does the community want a choice for a comprehensive claim? And what will that look like? Right? We can't say exactly what that's going to look like right now because it needs to be negotiated. But we have an idea. We know approximately how much land. We know it involves self-government. We know it doesn't involve the Indian Act. Right? But what the exact that looks like, we'll be able to show, the negotiators will be able to show the community in 2 or 3 years. And then they can decide which way do they want to go.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.